Hello YouTubers, my name is Frederick Lopez, and yes, in anticipation for Star Wars Rogue One, I am revisiting the Prequel Trilogy. And today I conclude that with my review and thoughts of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So, before I get going with my thoughts and review and a little backstory, here is the cast and crew, and a brief plot summary of what the film is about. Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith is written and directed by George Lucas. Stars Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Natalie Portman as Padme, Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker, Ian McDiarmid as Supreme Chancellor Palpatine, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, Jimmy Smits as Senator Bail Organa, Frank Oz as Yoda, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, Kenny Baker as R2-D2, and Christopher Lee as Count Dooku, and Matthew Wood as General Grievous. Nearly 3 years has passed since the beginning of the Clone Wars. The Republic, with the help of the Jedi, take on Count Dooku and the Separatists. With a new threat rising, the Jedi Council sends two Clone War heroes, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, to aid the captured Chancellor. Anakin feels he is ready to be promoted to Jedi Master. Meanwhile, Master Obi-Wan is hunting down the Separatist General, Grievous. Anakin, back at Coruscant, has future visions of pain and suffering coming Padme's way. During this time, Darth Sidious has revealed himself and is ready to execute the last part of his plan to rule the galaxy. Anakin becomes Darth Sidious's new apprentice, Lord Vader, and steps into action, killing the remaining Jedi. Vader, however, struggles between choosing the dark side and saving his wife, or remaining loyal to the Jedi Order and the Republic. And that's pretty much what Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith is all about. Now, this was released in 2005, and the hype for this was kind of building more. After Phantom Menace, the Star Wars hype died down. That film was released, and it felt like it was a very, very long time until we got Revenge of the Sith. I remember seeing the teaser poster back in 2004. Great stuff with Anakin Skywalker to the dark side. You had the Clone Wars cartoon series on Cartoon Network, Emmy Award-winning series that is, and it was great. And then, in addition to that, you had the DVDs finally released for the original Star Wars trilogy. Of course, there's more editions added from the special edition versions, but you had the release of those, and everything was hyping up to Anakin becoming Darth Vader. Meet the Fockers and Incredibles had trailers for Revenge of the Sith, as well as robots back then. And you also had a tie-in video game, which is probably one of the best Star Wars video games. I'm not lying. It actually had movie clips, and I rented it and played it right before seeing it in theaters. And it was a great game. It was probably one of my favorite LucasArts video games, along with Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb and Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. So there is a lot riding on this film, and I have to say that it did deliver. George Lucas poured his heart and soul into this. He bled into this film. He just put everything in this film. This film is just packed with everything, and I think part of that, besides being the conclusion to the prequel trilogy, this was really going to be the last Star Wars film made. He originally envisioned 9 episodes, but then wanted to end it with 6 and just tell the backstory here. And this was the last Star Wars film. It was thought to be the last Star Wars film. And for the longest time before Disney bought the rights to Lucasfilm and everything and Star Wars and started making sequels and spin-offs, this was the last Star Wars film. And I have to say, it's a great one at that. This is the best of the prequel trilogy, and I don't mean that lightly. This really is the best of the prequel trilogy. George Lucas not only just made a Star Wars film, he created a tragedy with Anakin Skywalker in this installment. Hayden Christensen improved his performance from Attack of the Clones. The characters give him much more depth. And also, he's conflicted in this film. You feel for him about Padme. You feel his struggle between the light and the dark side. And when he turns to the dark side. And it's not like overnight either. You see his reasons for becoming a Sith. You see the reasons why he turned to the dark side. Of course, there's a lot of issues he had as a character with his greed and power and wanting to be a Jedi Master and everything. That added to it with fear, anger, leading to hate and suffering. Like what Yoda said, that adds to it. But you also get to see the turmoil he's felt with the death of his mother and then Padme, who in this installment is now pregnant with Anakin's child, who ended up being Luke and Leia in the original trilogy. So there's just a lot more riding on this film. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor and the entire prequel trilogy has been great as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's probably the highlight of the entire trilogy, but here he really is a mirror of Alec Guinness from Star Wars A New Hope. I mean, I see his Obi-Wan. You can totally see Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan in this becoming Alec Guinness talking to Luke Skywalker in the original Star Wars. Natalie Portman does good. She's kind of given a backseat in this film, but there's a lot of emotions. Some of her acting is just super powerful with Anakin, and then just there's a scene where they're thinking about one another, and it's just so tragic in the music. And yes, the music. John Williams' score is spectacular in this last installment of the prequel trilogy. I mean, John Williams is great at every type of film, every music, whether it's Indiana Jones, Superman, Jurassic Park, you name it. This has been a good trilogy for his music, and yeah, he has Battle of the Heroes in this. Has some notes from A Duel of the Fates, but it's up there. This score is up there with some of his other great stuff. And Battle of the Heroes is up there with Duel of the Fates, Imperial March, Indoor Battle, etc., etc. It's spectacular and it's epic. One word to describe this film, it is epic. Yeah, you get to see Kashyyyk. Chewbacca makes a cameo, so you get to see a younger Chewbacca. Yoda, the computerization I thought was good in Attack of the Clones, but they really improved the computerization in this for Yoda. Not only him, but the ships. It starts off and you see a Star Destroyer, and then the two Jedi Starfighters going down. It's just big in scope. And one thing I do like about the computerization that makes it better than the previous two is the fact that it is detailed. It's like the models in the original Star Wars trilogy. You can tell that they look real. They're detailed to look realistic. And that's what I like about it. So I don't know if it's just the way it's computerized and made, or maybe it's the film being closer to the original trilogy and the timeline now that it looks that way. But anyway, it brings a layer of realism into Star Wars again. And yeah, the beginning of the film starts off with rescuing Chancellor Palpatine. They fight Count Dooku. He was a villain in Attack of the Clones, but really, he gets killed off pretty damn quick in this. And then he gets his hands and head cut off. And that's one thing I have to say. This is the first PG-13 Star Wars, and the rating is warranted, but I'm glad. I've always wanted to see a PG-13 Star Wars, and this one delivers. I actually think they should have gone the PG-13 route much earlier in the films, but it's great. And Force Awakens is PG-13, and I look forward to seeing Rogue One in PG-13. But anyway, they take care of him really fast. General Grievous is there, and he escapes. There's this whole beginning. It's spectacular landing the ship in Coruscant. That was great with the music. But you get kind of like the prequel vibe at the beginning, and you go into it. And there's a lot of scenes that they deleted, too, from the film, from that beginning. It was like an hour longer than it actually was in the final cut. But it works for me, the pacing. It just has that prequel feeling, but the beginning's mostly the more weaker part of the films, but it's not bad by any means at all. It doesn't have a lot of the problems that the previous two films in this trilogy had. But after you get past the beginning, it starts getting more and more to the actual story and more to this Revenge of the Sith happening, and it has a feeling of the original Star Wars. It's a tragedy, and that's where the film really begins to differentiate itself from the other two installments and become its own thing and become something that resembles the original trilogy. But yeah, George Lucas packed everything in this film, and Samuel Jackson gets more time to shine as Mace Windu, and that lightsaber fight. Senator Palpatine, Ian McDiarmid as Senator Palpatine, he is such an evil person. Oh my god, he relishes being evil. There's so many great scenes with him. He makes this film and trilogy, really. He's the main orchestrator behind all of the events of the Star Wars universe, and if this prequel trilogy did have a villain, it would be him as the main villain, who later on becomes the Emperor in this film. And it's just so, he's just so evil. He's just so calculating, and he just manipulates people. You see him talking to Anakin, that scene at the opera, where he's talking about a Sith Lord named Darth Plagueis the Wise, and then his apprentice killing him, which you know is Palpatine himself killing his master. He said he was so powerful that he could bring the people he loved back to life. And then Anakin just asks him, is it possible to learn this power? And he's like, not from a Jedi. It's just great. And then when he reveals himself and he knows about Padme and everything, and the visions Anakin's having and the feelings, and he's revealed to be the Sith Lord, that is a very powerful moment. And I was not expecting him to hold a lightsaber in this. The actor wasn't either, but that was a nice touch. And that fight, when Mace Windu and the other Jedi go there to arrest Palpatine, it is powerful, and that is one of the best lightsaber fights. And it's like, you're under arrest. And he's just like, on whose authority? And he's like, the Senate. And he's like, I am the Senate. And then that fight, and then I love that fight, and then Anakin's feelings, and Mace Windu told him to stay, so he goes there. And it's crazy because in the original script, Anakin was supposed to go with Mace Windu, help him fight Palpatine, and then at the last minute betray him. But I like this better. But it's just crazy, that one moment. And also that lightsaber fight. I mean, get the sound up, them fighting, glass breaking. That is such an amazing moment. This film is just filled with moments like that. And then having him choose, and then Palpatine's face getting force lightning when Mace Windu reflects it. And he's like, you must choose. And he's like, he's the Sith Lord. And he's acting helpless, and it just shows you how evil he is. Anyways, Anakin cuts off Mace Windu's hand, and he's just like, ah. And then Palpatine's just like, no, 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 you have lost. Like, just him saying that. And then Mace Windu getting killed is shocking. He's the first Jedi to get killed. And that is a turning point of the film where it starts getting really dark, and you're like, oh, this is really happening. And that's one great thing about George Lucas's story in this trilogy, is that, yes, it's different than the original trilogy, but these characters, I wasn't expecting to feel the way I do about Mace Windu dying as I did in Revenge of the Sith. He's one of my favorite characters along with ObiWan in the prequel trilogy, but it's just like that type of weight of being with these characters for the past two films, and them dying and stuff basically turning bad, really adds an emotional weight to this film. This film is much like Return of the Jedi in the original trilogy as far as like the emotional weight of what the past two films have been building up towards. And he becomes Darth Vader, and then you have Execute Order 66, brilliant montage of them getting killed off. Obi-Wan rides this like weird bird thing, but for some reason that scene reminds me a lot of Temple of Doom. I like the fight with him and Grievous. Uses a blaster, but yeah, that scene on the Jedi Temple, amazing shot there where Darth Vader's leading the Imperial troops to go kill off all the Jedi. He kills children. They don't show it, but it just shows you how far he's gone. You're just like, oh my god. See where Bail Organa is there, and sees a kid getting shot. Like, it is just tragic in a way. So after that, you know, Obi-Wan meets up with Bail Organa and Yoda cuts off two people's heads off. He leaves on Kashyyyk. There's a lot of cool stuff on planets. Utapau, Kashyyyk, and Mustafar are introduced. Great stuff, but it gets tragic at that point, and you see Padme crying. It's just a very powerful moment. But when they go back, I like it where they go back to the Jedi Temple fight, and then Obi-Wan discovers that Anakin is the one behind this, and that he has become Darth Vader. And Yoda's like, you have to face him. All go and face against the Emperor. And then you have that brilliant scene with him rising to power, and then Padme saying to Bail Organa, is like, and this is how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. Which I feel like that's kind of mirrored real life lately, but I digress. Powerful scene there, and then the Mustafar, where he kills off all the Trade Federation people, is fantastic. His eyes, and it's almost a sort of symbolism that George Lucas has created in this, with Mustafar almost representing hell, and this is where Anakin has gone to. He's to the dark side, and this is hell. So it's very, very symbolic in that way, and those last two fights are spectacular. But before I get to the fights, the scene with Padme and Obi-Wan, and then Obi-Wan figuring out that Padme is having Anakin's children. He's like, I'm sorry, there's so much emotion in the music. It's really a tragedy in this film, and it's very different from other Star Wars films, because this one, you feel the love story more in the relationship, but you understand why it goes to the dark side, and it's tragic. It's not like, I'm spoiled and I just want to turn bad. He does have some... it arrogance to him, I guess, as a character, but this is more like he loves this person deeply, and he wants to save her life, and he decides to basically sell his soul in order to do that. And that makes it a very, very tragic story, and very different from the other Star Wars films, in my opinion. But yes, let's get to the main moments of the fight. Epic, two lightsaber fights at the same time. Now, usually in Star Wars films, they structured it around a space battle and a lightsaber battle going on at the same time. This one's two lightsaber fights, and that's great because, you know, Phantom Menace had it with the Naboo battle, them fighting Darth Maul. Return of the Jedi had the Death Star 2 battle with Luke and Darth Vader. This one is Obi-Wan versus Anakin, which you've heard about so long, it's almost myth, and now we finally get to see it. And then you have Emperor Palpatine versus Yoda, and both are incredible. Probably the best fights in the entire saga as far as emotional weight. And then they bring back Duel of the Fates in there, great stuff. The Senate going down with the platforms is fantastic. And the music was just like, I've been waiting for this for a long time, my little green friend. Great stuff. And then Obi-Wan and Anakin is just like, you've took her from me. And he's like, you have done that yourself. And that was great. And it was tragic that he was the one to force choke Padme, Anakin. And she's like, I can't follow you anymore. You're breaking my heart. She doesn't recognize him. And Hayden Christensen does a wonderful job. They may have done some digital manipulation to his voice, but you just see how power hungry and lost he's become. He's talking to Padme, but he doesn't sound like himself. And he's like, the Jedi turned against me. Don't you turn against me. And the way he says that, you're just like, this man has become someone else entirely. He's not the Anakin Skywalker we have known for the past two movies and the first half of this one. And then he force chokes her, and then just all that anger. And then Obi-Wan's just like, only Siths deal in absolutes. I will do what I must. He's like, you will try. And then the fighting, the choreography is wonderful. I love the choreography. The man behind the stunts in this did a great job with the type of swordplay they've done. And they also bring a little bit of the old way of fighting from the original trilogy. Both fights are amazing. I just wish Yoda stood more of a fight, but it was still great nevertheless. He basically goes off to go into exile. So you see how that happens. But Anakin and Obi-Wan's fight is just spectacular, and I won't go too much into analysis of that. You just have to see it, and if you have seen it, you know how epic it is. And then that whole ending. I mean, Obi-Wan just screws up Anakin Skywalker. He's just like, don't underestimate my power. He's like, don't try it. Goes off, boom, just gets his arm and legs off, and then it's just crazy. And then he's just like, I loved you like a brother, and he's like, you were supposed to be the chosen one. I like that dialogue, and then when he's just like, in my point of view, the Jedi are evil. And he's like, well, then you are lost. Just so much great dialogue between Obi-Wan and Anakin. You really feel his pain. And why he just left, and he gets the lightsaber, and that's the lightsaber he gives to Luke in the original. And it's just sad, and then Anakin on the lava ground starts to burn, and he burns. He gets burned. And that's just him dying completely. I mean, there's so much symbolism in it, and it's tragic, really. So Obi-Wan goes off with Padme, and she, for some reason, dies and gives birth to Luke and Leia. We get to see Darth Vader being born in the eyes. Now, in theaters, that was probably one of the most powerful images I've seen in cinema, because everybody was silent. You could hear a pin drop on that scene, and it's silent, and you just hear the... And then the ending, I always thought the ending after seeing Attack of the Clones should be Luke with Uncle Owen, Aunt Beru, and the sons. And they did that. And George Lucas actually shot that during Attack of the Clones because he didn't want to go back to Tunisia to film in the desert. So they filmed that in Attack of the Clones. That ending was spectacular. There's a deleted scene where Yoda goes to Dagobah, but they don't show that. And then you get information about Qui-Gon from the nether realm of the Force to contact Obi-Wan. So that's how he's able to contact Luke later. And you get Darth Vader and the Emperor with like Grand Moff Tarkin CGI younger versions looking at the Death Star, and it's basically the original Star Wars. Bail Organa gives C-3PO and R2-D2 to Captain Antilles on the ship, and Padme's funeral is sad. I liked how they made her look pregnant, but it's sad because you see the pendant he gave her in Phantom Menace. It's just a tragedy, and now he's Darth Vader, and basically it ends where A New Hope starts, the original trilogy starts. And I like that because a lot of prequels, they feel different from the originals, but they don't make you want to watch the originals again. At least not in a good way. They make you want to watch to get it out of your mind. I didn't feel like watching Lord of the Rings after the Hobbit trilogy. Revenge of the Sith connected it so well to the original trilogy at the end that I wanted to pop in A New Hope and see it, and I would have a deeper appreciation for the original films. It started with the prequel world it was set in, and by the time it ended where the original trilogy is. And overall, George Lucas, for his final film directing and the final Star Wars film he made, was a tour de force and perfect. It was a perfect end into the saga, and it's my favorite Star Wars prequel, but it's one of my favorite Star Wars films. It's up there with the original Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it's up there with the original trilogy. My ranking is original trilogy and then Revenge of the Sith. I'd like to see how Rogue One takes a story and goes to the original, but yeah, Revenge of the Sith is just a spectacular film that I highly recommend. So what's my score? I give it a 4.5 out of 5, a 9 out of 10, and an A. Revenge of the Sith meets my highest recommendation. If you've seen it, feel free to watch it again. Let me know your thoughts in review. And also, if you haven't seen Revenge of the Sith, go and see it. It is a much deeper film than you realize, and it's a lot better than the last two prequel films. It is actually a well-crafted film. And it's worthy of the Star Wars name. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, comments. What's your favorite Star Wars prequel, Star Wars video game? And thank you for watching this review. Feel free this weekend or my next video, check out my review of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Anyway, that does it for my quick thoughts and review of Revenge of the Sith. I could have gone into more detail, but that's all I can think of right now. So yeah. It's an amazing film. I can't stress that enough. So 4.5 out of 5, 9 out of 10, and an A. The Force is strong with this film. Thank you all for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day out there.